When you come into the world, we take on the identity of those who are more powerful than us. What we're looking for is a kind of person who is looking for meaning. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here?
Hi everybody, this is David Masters, and this is the Sunday Conversation. Today, one of my favorite topics of all, dreams. But not just dreams, because dreams and reality often collide. So I ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream that was so real that you couldn't tell if it was reality or a dream? I have. I've had many. Although I don't dream often, the ones I have are very, very powerful. So it's useful to use this analogy because if you understand what sin does to you, which most people don't, by the way. So I'm going to change the word from sin to hypnosis. Hypnosis puts you in an altered state where you have surrendered your will. That's what the hypnotist needs in order to get you in a hypnotic trance. You have to surrender your will to that other person. And that's why they put you through these different steps. I want you to do this. I want you to count to 3. I want you to... They're putting you in a state of letting go. And so at a certain point, when you've let go far enough, you are in a trance. But here's the thing, you don't know it. You really think that once you're following that person's instructions, that it's your own idea. Now, I'll give you an example. I have been to hundreds of my dad's seminars. And when he does a hypnosis of life demonstration, he will do an exercise where he will get the people in the audience to clasp their hands together. I said, I want everybody to clasp your hands together. And he says, I want you to clasp them really, really tight. And he just waits for a few moments. And then he says, now, some of you will not be able to release your hands. What do you see about that one statement right there? That is the first real hypnotic suggestion right there. You won't be able to release your hands. Well, depending upon how much you're ready to surrender your own will, you'll be one of those people. So he says, everybody else relax your hands, and the people who cannot release their hands, I want them to stand up. So there they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come up to the stage. Now once they get there, he walks and he just looks at them. Can't release your hands, eh? Why? I don't know. So then he does his tugging on the tie trick, where he says, now what I'm going to do, and he tells them, I'm going to give you a hypnotic suggestion to change your shoes to the other feet. Right now, your shoes are on the wrong feet. But you don't know it yet. So every time I touch my tie, you're going to have this urge to change your shoes and switch them to the other feet. So all he does is walk around the stage and just touch his tie a little bit. Whoop. Flaunts it in front of them like that, you know. And all of a sudden they get real antsy. Really antsy. And one of them, the first one breaks out and just says, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And he literally shuffles his shoes around and puts them on the other feet. Feels so much better. And then my dad says to him, what did you just do? I just changed my shoes. They were on the wrong feet. And he says, what about these other people? Oh yeah, their shoes are still on the wrong feet. So then they all collapse one at a time like a domino effect, and they all put their shoes on the other feet, and people in the audience are laughing. Because it seems funny that people think that their shoes are on the wrong feet. but it isn't funny at all. And they on the stage are laughing at them in the audience because they look at them and their shoes are on the wrong feet. Now this is a true example. It's a simple example. It's not a harmful example because he can bring them out of that hypnotic suggestion anytime he wants. But I'm giving you this example because I want you to understand the nature of sin is hypnosis. Once sin has an effect on you, once you accept a suggestion from any source that is not of God, because the scripture says all that is not of God is sin. Okay? All that is not of truth is sin. In other words, it's hypnotic, has a hypnotic effect on you. And the world is just constantly giving you suggestion upon suggestion. You watch TV, and now they are getting you to diagnose your own mental illness. And if you feel this way and that way, but here's the warning. The warning is 3 minutes long about how many ways you can die and other horrible things that can happen to you, but it shows everybody having a great time. While they're warning you that this medication could potentially have these terrible effects on you. But you don't see that that's what's happening. Just like most people, they don't realize when they meet somebody, they get wrapped up in who that person is, what they look like, the perfume they wear, whatever, all the things, the kind of car they drive, all the little things about that person. These are all prompting signals. See, look at me, I'm the right one for you. Just like every other TV commercial, we're all running our own commercial all the time. And no wonder the world is in a huge mess because people don't see that there's a domino effect of hypnotic suggestions, one after the other after the other. And once you fall into it, you're trapped by it, like being in a dream. So in a sense, if you could take a look at dreams and realize that when you're in a dream and you want to wake up, but you don't know how to wake up because you haven't yet realized that you're trapped in a dream. Has anybody had that experience? Just a raise of hands. Okay. I've had that experience. I don't know anybody that hasn't. So, we're in this trapped state. And even if we want to be better, even if we want to wake up, something inside of us won't let us. And why is that? Because we've surrendered ourselves to it. Okay. So now, I want to read something to you from the scripture, because I just did an audio for the new FHU website called Mental Health or Spiritual Health. Luke 8:26 through 39. And this is the New International Version, which is kind of plain English. Maybe some of the meaning is lost, but I don't think so. They sailed to the region of Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained, hand and foot, and kept under guard, he had broken his chains, and he had been driven by the demon into solitary places. Now again, this is only part of it. I want to give you the idea that this man is trapped in a torturous nightmare. He's trapped. And he's so controlled by this nightmare that he becomes so strong that he breaks his bonds. But as soon as Christ shows up, the man is subdued. The man begs him, "Don't torture me." This is so incredible to think about it because we're looking at a mental health crisis on our earth today. I'm saying it's not mental. I'm suggesting that it is a spiritual health crisis. As a matter of fact, the Catholic Church now has begun initiating priests to do exorcisms. And there's such a huge cry for exorcisms, they can't supply the amount of priests needed for people who want them. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? If I was a person that was suffering from all kinds of horrible problems, some people would say I am. But if I was a person and they tried to do all these different kinds of treatments on me, all these therapies and the pills and everything else, and nothing worked, I might also conclude that I need an exorcism. Have you ever thought about that? Because to me, it would be so much more efficient to go right to the source. Let's say it's something really wrong with your brain. Okay, exorcism may or may not work. And it may or may not work even if you want one. But I'm just making a point that if somebody has the moral and spiritual authority to exercise something that is in somebody like that, that is a direct, from point A to point Z, to the end of that thing's power. So Jesus asked, going back to Luke 8:26 through 39, Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. And they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. Very interesting statement. Why did the demons not want to be cast out of that man? Makes you think. Maybe because it was much easier for them to live inside of that poor man than to go to hell and be there subject to a punishment for failure? Oh yes, demons do fail. They do fail. Their mission, take you over. Destroy your soul. But when they don't, they meet with a punishment. A large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. See, even being in a pig is better than going to hell for a demon. If you believe in such things. If you don't, okay, maybe one day you'll understand. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this to the town and the countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. I love that. He was in his right mind. He was no longer a prisoner of the demonic nightmare. Now he was in his right mind, that he had been restored. And that's the headline here. Jesus restores a demon-possessed man. But remember, what was there to do to this poor man who had been possessed? What did he have to do? Did he have to spend months in the hospital? Did he have to take all kinds of special medications? All that had to happen was that he would be released. That's it. This is the best part. I'm going to read it again because this is so good. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. I'm going to say it again. Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Wait a minute. Why would they be afraid? What's there to be afraid of? Or were they afraid of the demons coming into them? No, I don't think so. This man was in his right mind now. They were afraid of his power and his authority over the dark side. And this one man who was possessed was the evidence of Jesus' spiritual, moral authority. Now, if I saw Jesus, if you saw Jesus, and if you saw a man who was possessed for years and years, sitting at the feet of Jesus in his right mind, what would you do? I tell you what I would do. I'd throw myself in front of that Jesus. I'd say, whatever you did for that man, do it for me. Please, I beg you. But everybody else was afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all of the people of the region of the Gerasenes, that's a weird word for me, region of the Gerasenes, asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome with fear. So he got in the boat and he left. Wow. It blows my mind. Son of God standing there, you could throw yourself at his feet and say, do whatever you did for him, do it for me. But no, they all got together and they told him to leave. How amazing is that? That they would rather live the nightmare than they would be free. I just think it's incredible. The man from whom the demons had gone out begging to go with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, return home and tell how much God has done for you. So the man went away and told all over the town how much Jesus had done for him. Again, that's Luke 8:26 through 39 from the New International Version. You know, when I read that, I started to think about a person who was trapped in a nightmare, who couldn't get out. And I've talked to many people who had terrible dreams, and they were afraid to go to sleep at one point because they were pursued by something in that dream, in that nightmare. And I don't think I've ever been afraid to go to sleep, but I have had horrible nightmares, recurring ones. When I was a child, I saw a movie, and I always had a vivid imagination, so this is one of the reasons why this haunted me. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Anybody remember that? It's a classic 1950s. But I kept dreaming that this 50-foot woman was there in my dreams coming after me. And that I would, for whatever reason, I would climb into a tower to try to get away from her, and it would knock over the tower and I would fall. But I never hit the ground. I always woke up before I hit the ground. Now they say, and I don't know if this is true, it probably isn't, but they say if you die in your dreams, that you actually die. And I think that that would be true for some people because they're so invested in that dynamic, that dream dynamic in there, that it's possible. I don't know if it's probable, but it's possible. But it doesn't matter because ultimately, if you don't wake up from the nightmare, you're going to die. You're going to die anyway, one way or another, one day. So it goes back to this idea that, yes, we're all going to die one day, but the question is, do we get to choose the reasons why? And the answer is, of course we do. We do get to choose the reasons why. Because we get to die for the right reason and in a right way, or we get to die for all the wrong reasons. And this is the way the world goes. The people that asked Jesus to leave after he had helped the man, how do you think their lives are going to turn out? Because they had the chance right there. Do for me what you've done for him. They all had that opportunity to stand in front of Jesus, get on their hands and knees. Do for me what you've done for him. And I'll tell you right now, first thing that occurs to me is that if you are in that state where you can ask for that to be done, you're already halfway there. Maybe even further than that. Because I know in my everyday life, when I am being challenged by some difficulty, I always ask Christ. And I say, actually, Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, please take this away from me. That's all I need to say. There's no begging. There's no explanation needed. Well, Jesus, see, I went to the market and this lady was mean to me and I got upset. Oh, come on. Do we really want to explain these things to Jesus? I mean, seriously, Jesus gets it. He knows us. As a matter of fact, we are all easy to read. Truth be known. Some people walk around and they have these very stoic, and they think that they're impenetrable. They think people don't see what's going on in there. But we can read each other. We do have ability to see beyond the facade, right? You can almost tell when somebody's unhappy. You know, the face says a lot of things. Or people that have painted on smiles. What's that all about? You know? The Botox look. Nothing personal meant by that, by the way. Because people do get caught up with tattoos and purple hair and Botox and God knows what, plastic surgery. They get caught up with it because they think, well, that's something that makes me look like I've changed. But it's a very shallow and short-lived remedy, if it's that at all. But the nightmare state that we cannot wake up from is sin. And sin, literally, is hypnotic. And that's why people can't help themselves when they come into a situation where they're being tempted. And what is it that is tempting us? That's a really interesting question. Why am I being tempted? Why is it that I feel like doing something that I know I shouldn't do? I've been standing in front of that door umpteen million times in my life. We all have. Why? Let's just put it to you this way. If you go to a third world country, I saw a fishing show the other day. They were eating grubs. You know what a grub is? It's like a big fat caterpillar type worm. And this one guy was in New Zealand, and the lady was saying, "Oh, these are delicious." She pops it in her mouth. And this was actually Chef Gordon Ramsay. Everybody knows who he is. He said, "I have to eat that." It's like, whoa. And he sat there and he's like, "I don't want to eat that." The other lady's like, "Oh, this is really good." And he's standing there going, "I don't know." But he ate it, and then he spit it out and he threw up. But it's the point. It's like one person runs toward that horrible, disgusting thing, and the other person steps back and says, "Well, I don't want to go there." But if you do, I mean, sometimes I guess you do. Sometimes I guess you have to do something and then see the regret side of it. It's like, I would never do that again. That's absolutely horrible. But unfortunately, sin is a trap. It's a one-way door, in a sense. You go through that door. You know how they catch animals? They go inside the door, the flap closes behind them, and they can't push it back out. When you get tempted in that way to go through that door, and you don't know it at the time because you think there's something in it for you. Like Pinocchio on Pleasure Island. Didn't know that he was going to get turned into a jackass. He thought, hey, this is great, smoking cigars and playing pool and breaking things and doing destruction. But at a certain point, the conversion process begins, and you're no longer the master of your destiny. See, that's what evil wants to do to you. And if it's not just you, it could be somebody that you're with, somebody that's around you. We have people that come to this talk, and they talk about how they destroyed their children. They didn't know what they were doing or why, and they couldn't stop. So even if it doesn't necessarily get to you, it might get several others around you. Because that's what evil wants to do. It wants to penetrate and use you as a change agent. And that hypnotic effect that it has on you, you can't help but have that hypnotic effect on other people. Because remember, temptation. What is temptation? Temptation is a test. Really, that's what it is. It's a test. It's like Gordon Ramsay with the worm. I'm never going to do that again. And then the first thing he realizes, I never should have done it in the first place. But let's say you take the worm, you spit it out. See, you're able to say, I learned a lesson from that. And that's kind of a metaphor of a person who has not yet been damaged so much that they have to somehow convert and accept the stupid thing that they just did. I mean, he could have been converted to a grub fascination. I got to have those grubs. An obsession. And then you look at people that have obsessive compulsive disorders. Well, where did the first obsession begin? Where did it start? It started somewhere when, and my dad talks about remembering when he was a kid and he left his house and he thought, did I lock the door? And then he realizes, because it's telling him, go back and check the door. So maybe you go back and check the door and then you leave and you think, did I really lock the door? You see how it works? And then he says, well, I don't care if I lock the door. I don't care, because if I locked the door, I did. If I didn't, I didn't. And then you go on with your life. But the person that doubts and lingers in that place, there's something that has got its hooks into them, and now it's another thing. Did you wash your hands? Are your hands clean enough? What about that food? Is it old or is it new? Maybe just put it in the refrigerator. Is the food old? Is it new? Oh, are there germs on my bed? Are there germs on the floor? Are there germs in the air? You see these people walking around with masks on. I don't think it's not it's okay idea. You know, when somebody's afraid they have a compromised immune system. But you see what I'm saying? It's a domino effect of hypnotic triggers. Boom, 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 boom. Until there's nothing left of you, that you have no self-control. That your whole life is caught up with suggestions. And they, at some point, they don't even have to come from the outside world, because they get embedded right up in here. And they just play over and over. And that's the endless loop of thought that we talk about. The endless loop of thought. And that is the squirrel cage of sin. Because it takes away, systematically takes away your choices. It takes away your freedom. It takes away everything that you have. And if it's not you, if somebody else has it, and they're in that squirrel cage, they're going to have that effect. They're going to try to get you to do what they do, because if you don't, you threaten them. Jesus is standing there in front of the man who had been, I'm going to say, repossessed, taken back from evil. Everybody was afraid. They told him to leave. Now the question is, who really told him to leave? Was it those people who were afraid? Or was it what was living in them? All of them. Because misery loves company, you know. So they didn't want that guy that had the light to save them from their whatever, from their darkness. They shooed him away. Get out of here. You know, in the beginning of our country, one of the founding fathers, Thomas Paine, very much like Jesus, he would walk around and criticize the things that he saw that were wrong. And eventually everybody in the country wanted him to leave, so he went to France and helped them fight the French Revolution. I thought to myself, wow. See, the point is very simple. You're either a Jesus type or you're not. And the truth, know the truth and it shall make you free. Such a powerful idea. A simple idea like that. What's the truth? I would have these arguments with kids when I was in high school. So what is the truth? I said, well, what's the question? You can't just say what the truth is. The truth is relative to what is being examined. What's the truth about a given thing? Anything. An idea, a thought, a belief, a behavior. What's the truth? And then the word know, if you look at the word know from the Latin, it means to be intimate with. You know the source of the truth. That's how you know the truth. Shall I say that again? You rely on your Creator. You say, I don't know the truth. I want to know the truth. Show me the truth. But you don't give yourself the answer. You know, a lot of people, they dig right into the intellect. Where's the truth? Oh, wait a minute, I got something in here. Oh, no, wait, that's not it. Oh. It's not in there. Because you can't find the truth in your in your archives, in the paper, in your head. The truth is like the living water. You drink it. You can't drink imaginary truth, just like you can't drink imaginary water. It has to be given to you. It has to be there for you. But the average person, when they are confronted with the idea, well, what is the truth? Well, they start to go back into their archives. Well, I must have learned that somewhere. And here's the most simple truth of all. Be still and know. Now, wait a minute. I got to reconstruct this, or I got to break this down for you. Be still. Like when I'm walking my dog, I have an 80-pound Doberman. He could pull me down the street. But he obeys me when I tell him, stop. He stops. And you know why I tell him to stop? Because we're going to go one way or another, and he doesn't know which way that is. I might go left, I might go right, I might go straight. I tell him, stop. And he stops. In a sense, that's like being still. Wait a minute. What's the direction? But when you get to that point where you can actually stop for a moment, and this, of course, is what happens when you do the meditation, you let go of the thoughts. The thoughts are still there, but you let go of them. You disengage from them. You know, like in a manual shift car, you got a clutch. You push that clutch in, it disengages the gears from the engine. Same thing with meditation. You disengage, and then, so be still is part one, to know part two. You become intimate with the source. You open the way. You open the door. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But when you get that quiet moment and you make space, in that moment, and this is what Luke 12:12 says, don't worry about what you'll say. He was brought before a court. Don't worry about what you'll say, because in that moment you will be shown. Luke 12:12. I remembered that since I was 17 years old, because I was never a book learning person. I couldn't do it. I tried. It didn't work for me. And I realized at some level that was just information. I didn't know what to do with it. I'll give you an example. I wanted to fly a small airplane many years ago. And I started going with a friend of mine who was a pilot. And I had about 50 or 60 hours worth of experience, and I was a pretty good pilot at that point. I mean, if you drive for 50 or 60 hours, you kind of got a feel for it. So then I wanted to try to take my test to get my license. I didn't realize 700 questions. 700 questions. I could probably retain 7. 7 answers. But 700, so my friend said to me, well, you can just get the book. I said, what book? Oh, it has all the answers in it. Okay, so I went and I bought the book for $50. And I got home and I opened the book and I thought, answer number 1 through 12. I'm going to know this stuff. So I got to answer like 6 or 7, and I thought, what am I doing? I don't know what the questions are. So the answers don't mean anything to me. The questions. What should I do? Be still Stop, dog, wait. Now comes the know. To be intimate with the source. It comes right out of heaven, right into you, right out of that cosmic portal that we don't understand. We don't know where it is. We don't know how to tap into it. Well, maybe we do. Maybe we know how to tap into that. But it's not something where it has a door handle. There's no window you can lift. Traditionally, we don't know how to contact the source of knowing. Because that's what you're doing when you get... See, this is why it's so beautiful and so simple. The instruction is so simple that it cannot be misunderstood. But if you don't have the ability to recognize the meaning of that statement... See, he didn't say, I command you to be still. There is no command there. You cannot be forced to become intimate with the source. You can't. Because that takes away choice. It takes away obedience. Adam and Eve learned the very hard way. One thing. Don't eat that fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. One thing. That one thing is what the devil used to get them. That serpent, that wise old snake of old. One simple instruction destroyed humankind. And one simple instruction saves humankind. It's not a command, it's an instruction. See, if my dog doesn't believe that I'm serious about getting him to stop, he won't. So I've had to train him a little bit. So I let him off his leash to run in certain places, but I don't let him go until I say, go. He stands there waiting for me. He looks at me like, well, what are you going to do? Go. And he runs off. And he comes back when he's done running around, and he just waits for me to put the leash back on. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have a master that you don't mind being leashed to? That tells you when to stop and when to go? I mean, really, think about it. You are going to be subservient. You're subject to your dreams. And those dreams are not within your control. At least most of them aren't. 99.9%. When you fall into a dream or a nightmare, you're not in control of that. It controls you. It controls the course of the story that goes on in there. So what if you had a master, a good master, a wise master, a loving master? Would it be so bad to be leashed to that master? My dog likes me. When I come home, he can't wait to see me. I mean, I never understood because I never was a dog person. We've had this dog for 2.5 years. My kids wanted a dog. I said, all right, no, I'm going to take care of it. But it's actually been really good for me because he makes me walk every day, which is good for my health. But I've also had to develop a relationship with the dog because dogs need a leader. See, creatures like that are pack creatures. They need a front creature. But in our case, we are herd creatures, although we are individuals, but we still need a master. And Jesus said something interesting. He said he came to fulfill the law. Now, if you think about it, we can go on living the way we want. Doesn't matter to God. And I don't know if it matters to Christ, that we can live whatever way we want. But when we're tired of living that way, He's waiting for us. He has all the time. We don't. We don't have all the time in the world. We have very, very limited amount of time in this world. And for those of us who don't incline toward that master, that good, loving, kind master that will give us direction through knowing, through that relationship, See, the leash is like that invisible cord that connects us to God. It connects me to the dog just through that line. And when I pull up on that leash, the dog, what are you doing? Stop. This dog stops. Sometimes all I have to do is pull the leash because he's getting to know me. Kind of same relationship with us and God. I mean, we're not dogs, obviously, but we need his direction. And as I think back on the suffering that Jesus went through, he knew that something terrible was going to happen to him. He knew it. I'm not sure that the Bible is actually accurate in describing what he said when he was hanging on the cross, but maybe it was about taking this away from him, because he had to go through it for the sake of everyone else in the whole human race. But you have to understand that we have to go through these different trials and tribulations in our life. We have to suffer. We have to be like wild animals in a sense, so that we can actually appreciate the idea of having guidance from above. Because when you're just running wild, things happen to you. We all know that. Terrible things happen. And you get to that point. I got there when I was 18. When I almost died. I almost drowned. Because I went out surfing one day. I've told this story before, but I was angry, and I just wanted to go surfing because that was my escape. Something said to me, don't go surfing today. And I said, go to hell. I went surfing, and I fell off my surfboard, and it broke a rib. And I was in the water, so I couldn't hardly move. And by some force of whatever, I washed up on the shore, and I was just in terrible pain. But in that moment, I realized something. I can't live this way anymore. I don't want to live this way anymore. And I cried out to God, and I said, God, I would rather be dead than live this way. And I meant it. Because it was horrible. It was horrible to anticipate the next horrible thing that's going to happen to you. There's something that you can, when you have a horrible experience, you can do one of two things. You can think about it and try to figure out ways to avoid it. And I use the example of a person that's walking on the beach and they step on glass. Ow! So now they're walking down the beach and they're looking for glass and they run into a manhole cover and they stub their toe. Now they're looking for glass and the manhole cover and they kick a rock. Rock, manhole cover, glass. You're looking, trying to avoid all these stupid things. And if you were just aware, you would see the whole thing. You would see them all. So that's one way of dealing with it. Looking for things to avoid, or you can learn your lesson. You can learn your lesson once and for all. And that's what finally, and I was 18 years old. I mean, that's kind of the edge of teetering over into being responsible for your own behavior. And I didn't want to die. I didn't want to have another experience like that. I wanted to wake up from my hypnosis. I saw it. I saw it all. And I asked God to take it from me. So now, it's the extraction process. Slowly but surely, God will pull you this way, and pull you this way, and pull you this way. And if you just listen, you meditate. I started meditating when I was 18. I thought, if I don't do this, I'm not going to live. I wasn't really accident prone, but yet I was. Because accident prone maybe has something to do with not being aware. Just being caught up in your head and being rebellious and angry. So I would just watch for the little prompts and wait for them. And yeah, if you go back to your everyday ordinary way of living, your natural proclivity is you're going to go backward. You're going to go back to the things you know, the familiar things. Even though they're terrible, there's certain predictability in the things you know. See, and that's when you get back into that, I got to watch for this, and I got to watch for that, and I got to watch for this. And your whole life becomes preoccupied by watching out for things that you've had experiences with before, because you know that those things can cause you more harm. Or you go back and you begin to incline yourself toward your Creator and toward being led. And the scripture also says, none can come unto the Father unless he be drawn. And there's something that pulls you that way. It pulls you, and it pulls you, and you either listen to it, and what is pulling at you is a knowing. Now, I'll liken it to the hypnotist that's telling the person who's got his shoes on the wrong foot, wake up. Wake up now. Wake up. Snap the fingers. Wake up. But it takes a while. The longer you've been in a hypnotic state, it can take a while to come out of it. Fortunately, a person who is on a stage can be woken up by the hypnotist because the hypnotist has control. So he gives them the post-hypnotic suggestion. Wake up. After the hypnosis, there's an awakening. And the person looks down and says, what are my shoes doing on the wrong foot? When it was really their idea before they woke up. They thought it was their idea to change the shoes around. Everybody that's subject to hypnosis believes that whatever it is that they're being told to do in that hypnotic state is really their idea. But it isn't. Hypnosis is very powerful because it is what sin is made of. And it could be anything. It could even be the religion of Jesus Christ that is taught in a bad way. It could be anything. So the dreamer must awaken, and there are many opportunities in life to get to that place where you simply say, I can't live this way anymore. And you ask God in Christ's name, take this away from me. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, take this away from me. Wake me up. Deliver me from this. Free my soul. Free me from this torment. Because you have to remember, the other thing is that part of it is you're born into this world. It's called being born in sin. When children are small, they're very innocent, and they don't know how to respond to the things of the world. This is something you learn. You watch your parents. Your parents are your leaders. You see how they respond to the things of the world, and that's how you learn how to take on those things too. So part of it is it's not our fault. Because we're born this way. We're born subject to sin, also known as hypnosis. We're subject to hypnotic influences. That's why advertising works. Just to give you an example, they do 90% of the money that's spent on advertising is spent on research and development. They want to understand what our triggers are. And what they've realized is, and this goes back many, many decades, something called priming. They expose you to ideas. Let's just say the word Kleenex, okay? They expose you to the word Kleenex over and over and over and over. And what it does is eventually predisposes you for a future action. So you see Kleenex on the TV, you hear it on radio, you see people using the tissue over and over and over again. So when you go into the store, you could have generic tissue right there next to it, but something in your mind says Kleenex, because you've been primed to think Kleenex. During that period of exposure, you're probably not aware that you're being exposed to priming sources. As a matter of fact, if you are aware of it, it has no effect. Now, some people cannot be hypnotized. The majority of people can, but some people just see that this is a suggestion. And they said, I'm not going to follow that suggestion. It's natural. It's innate. I'm not going to do that, whatever they said. And this is not to make me an unpatriotic person, but when we went to, when I was in high school, we went to the auditorium for an assembly. And they wanted you to stand up and do a pledge of allegiance, right? I said, I already love America. I already love my country. I already know these things. I'm not going to stand there and mindlessly say the same thing everybody else says. I don't need to, so I would sit. People would look at me like, what's wrong with you? I just didn't need the priming of it. Other people do. Just like other people need flu shots and vaccines when they're born. I wish I hadn't gotten vaccines, but I didn't give any of my kids the vaccines because I kept them safe. And I give them a world to grow up in that doesn't expose them to the kind of things. We actually tried to expose our kids to the chicken pox when they were about 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. We wanted them to get the chicken pox so they got the immunity. So the cousin had chicken pox. So we took a trip to the cousin's house and had them spend the whole, like several days together, and they never got it. We tried to give it to them. Their immune systems were good. They had good food. They had good life. And their immune systems were strong. They're strong. They're strong in a different way. Whatever it may be. But you see, the priming of life, it starts, it doesn't matter if you're a cannibal. There are rituals that they do. It doesn't matter what culture you're born into. You are indoctrinated into the rituals of that culture. And that becomes, your mind is like a piece of silly putty, and they put the impressions on there. Impression. They overlay your mind with those impressions. And that becomes you after a while, and you think that that's you. But of course it isn't. And one thing that my dad said that was so important, he said that cancer can be an identity issue. A person who is in conflict with themselves. So if you take a look at immune diseases, and I'm not a doctor, so this is just my observation, but autoimmune diseases, the body's attacking itself. Why is that? What causes that to happen? What conditions are present to cause the immune system to attack the body? As if it's the enemy. You kind of understand what I'm saying. I'm not telling you that that's not a medical diagnosis. That's just a great question. What is it about us that can be so turned upside down that we are our own worst enemy? And that is because we weren't meant to live as prisoners of a dream. We weren't meant to live hypnotically involved with things. We weren't designed to live that way. We were born into this world subject to that condition. That's what it means to be born in sin. It means being born under control of something that is not native to us. And that's how cultures indoctrinate their people. And that's why people go to war. We're all people, but this culture over here is angry with this culture over here because somebody kicked over a can of soup on a Friday, and that started the whole cultural revolution. Whatever it may be. You see it in our country. It could be, we have a tremendous rift between those who believe that a child is a living human being and those that don't. And the ones that want to destroy those living human beings in the womb are at war with those who say don't do it. You see what I'm saying? Everything can be a cause for war. Everything can be a cause for conflict. And there are people that get caught up in that conflict, and some people go over from this side to that side, and then there are people that have been over here and they go over to that side. I heard the story of an abortion doctor that had performed 60,000 abortions who came over to our side, to the light. He's the most powerful advocate against such a thing. But he was asleep. He was in a nightmare. He couldn't wake up from it. And the nightmare was compelling him to do things that were unspeakable. How could you live with yourself, I ask, if you do such horrible things? But Jesus said it this way, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because he looked at us and he saw us in the matrix of hypnosis, the hypnotic matrix. We're born into it. It tells us who to be. It tells us what we can and cannot do. The hypnotic matrix becomes our God until we find the real God. Until we've got to that point that I did when I was 18 years old, thank God. I said, I can't live this way anymore. Something deep inside of me yelled out, can't live this way anymore. Take this from me. Oh, yeah, I tried to go back. I didn't tell you that part. Oh, probably 3 or 4 weeks after I said to God, I don't want to live this way anymore, I tried to go back. Something else happened to me. No, you're not going back. Oh, you can go back, but then there's a whole string of other things that's going to happen to you. No. No, thank you. I'll just go your way. I want to go your way. It's a better way for sure. That's wisdom right there. You don't have to be incredibly philosophical or spiritual person. You don't have to do great things. You just have to know that's not the way. That's the beginning of doing great things right there. Go. Go away. You dark side over there. Bring me into the light. That's where I want to be. So, I love this because they were afraid of Jesus when he saved a man. How pathetic is that? And throughout life, great spirits, as Einstein said, have often faced violent opposition from mediocre minds. So if you're going to be a great spirit, if you really will do God's work, if you will incline yourself in that direction, you'll be given opportunities. But I warn you, the spirit of this world wants to smack you down. It wants to make an example of you. Because once you break out, and this is why I like the movie The Matrix, because one person that breaks out has the potential to break everybody out. That's what Jesus did. That's the power of one person. Jesus has the power because he overcame death itself. Because he saw the Matrix aspect of it. He saw the people that were crucifying him as agents who were occupied by the enemy. He didn't hate them. How hard would that be? Somebody nailing your hands to a cross and through your ankles and stabbing a spear in your side. How hard would it be not to hate those people, not to feel righteous anger? But then if you see what's happening, God gives you the strength. And God is real. God is the real author of this universe. Like the author of a book, you don't see that author. You read the story. When you read a brilliant story, you see a beautiful movie, you don't see the people that made it. And when you see them, you go, wow, that guy wrote that? We're all less than perfect. But God is the author of this story. And God can change your story any time. Any time. Just like the thief that was hanging on the cross. There were 2 thieves. One said, if you're the Son of God, get us out of here. And he mocked him. The other thief said, I'm guilty of all the things. I deserve to be here. But I'm asking you right now, remember me on this day when you go into your kingdom. And Jesus said, yeah, I will. That's all it took. Ask, and you shall receive. Ask, believing that God hears you. Ask, believing that what you're asking for is not beyond what your Creator will do. Especially if you're humble in asking. If you're humble in saying, God, I do not want this anymore. Take this from me. Let me serve your way. It doesn't have to be anything more than take this from me. I repent. Forgive me. Remember, asking you shall receive. Forgive me, Father. Forgive me. You don't think God will forgive you? You're wrong. Save me, Father, save me. You don't think he'll save you? You're wrong. But wait. Wait. Wait for him. You know why? Because he's waited for you. He will wait for you. And even though ye be dead, it's possible that you shall still live. That's why I love life after death stories, by the way. People that go into hell as atheists come out believers. God is very, very real, very powerful, more powerful than any kind of enemy there is. And even though these people are clinically dead, they come back to life and they tell the story They tell that story, and they all become believers after that. There's not one story I've ever seen where a person said, "Oh, God saved me, what a joke." Doesn't exist. That's the Sunday conversation.